Exactly, like a week ago, human rights lawyers and activists were arrested. It's interesting to explore this event because how things were handled during the arrest and the kind of reasons which were stated by the police were also very interesting. Why? Because according to the police, the reasons stated were they had links with Maoists and they were allegedly plotting to assassinate Prime Minister Modi. Keeping the facts or whether they are actually involved with Maoists or any things which they were alleged aside, the way this event was handled by the national media is very interesting. Except for a minor or minute section of the liberal leftist media, the rest of the national media was actually into the propaganda that it's a national security risk and there was an actual threat to the security of the prime minister. But as per the bio of these arrested individuals, they were practicing human rights lawyers and some were activists who worked throughout their career for the backward classes, for the Dalits and the poor communities, the Adivasis who live in the remote areas, and they were fighting against some of the corporations or against the land encroachments, mostly the illegal land encroachments and so on. So, so it brings to the point where we need to ask why they were actually arrested, whether they have actual links with the Maoists or in the so-called plot, and also the proofs which was stated by the police is that they found a letter written by one of the activists which has details about the plot, but it doesn't have a proof that whether the letter was actually written by the activist, but it has the activist name on it, but it doesn't necessarily prove that the activist has actually written that letter. What is more important is how these people were portrayed as urban naxals and terrorists and anti-nationals on a national media platform, like let's say TV channels like Republic TV. They are actually running a campaign with hashtags destroy Maoists. So they are kind of actually declared, or like they have judged without any categorical proof that they are Maoists. The courts have stayed their errors, but these media outlets have already released their judgment that these are anti-nationals or terrorists or Maoists per se. So, though the courts have stayed their arrest and they are formally in the house arrest for now, why these media outlets are acting this way? It's an also an interesting thing to observe. So why or what is the reason behind the government to support these arrests? Obviously, when they state that it's a national security threat, national internal security threat, what they mean by national means, since they have been working against corporations, against land encroachments and other for backward classes, What they mean by national here is, by national they mean big corporations or the rich people who suffer at the hands of these human rights activists. So obviously they had to do something to silence these people. Otherwise, they have to fight them in the legal system, in the courts, which obviously they will lose. So this is one kind of suppressing people from rising against the establishment. So whenever you listen to anti-national or terrorist or urban naxal in the media, you should assume that when they say terrorist, who they are trying to terrorize. That means the people who just raise their voice against the capitalists or people who are trying to exploit innocence, or like the laws or regulations sometimes which are framed to suppress people. These are the things when someone is against, obviously they are portrayed as anti-national these days. It's kind of became a reality, surreal thing to call anyone who oppose the establishment as an anti-national. So here national doesn't mean it represents the whole country as a whole. Here they only mean that the rich, the corporations, like the top Forbes richest people in the country, which obviously the country is trying to protect, the government obviously is trying to protect the interests of the rich or the highest earning corporations, because without them the system of this capitalistic establishment will not be able to survive. Let's say suddenly government becomes ideal and they start supporting people, or per se they start making laws and regulations only for the welfare of the people. So now what happens is, if they do so, they have to inflict more money for these plans, and obviously they have to control the prices and other things which will be very detrimental to the corporations, because for example, let's say oil prices. So when you compare this oil prices from today, it's trending at 80 to 85 rupees toward the country per liter. When you look back like 5 years or 6 years, it was 20 or 25 rupees lesser than today. While at the same time, today the barrel cost which India is bearing to buy oil from the sourcing nations is very less compared to that of 6 years earlier. So, and government might also claim that okay, we are increasing the prices to make people use less fossil fuels or petroleum products, so that it will affect less the environment and pollution, for pollution control. They might say that, and you need to observe one more thing. So for to believe it, government should also put in an alternate to find or to fund alternate sources of energy for electricity and other purposes. It's completely unbelievable because government is not doing that. It is not inflicting enough money into solar and wind energy. They are just putting more and more money into petroleum, and increasing the prices as well. There was at another incident which was similar to this, happened like 2 or 3 weeks back, where a JNU student, or I don't exactly remember whether he is a current student or a former student, Umar Khalid, he is a Muslim, and he was very prominent student in JNU when they were protesting against a lot of issues at JNU. So there was one incident where he was attacked in the sense he was shot at in the middle of a street, just couple of blocks away from the parliament. So why this is an important incident? Because it is very interesting to analyze things that has built up which resulted in this incident. Okay, tuning back to like months before this incident took place, Republic TV especially ran a continuous weeks of propaganda or narrative that this particular student is an anti-national and he is against the values of the country, while he was just protesting about all the issues or problems created by the government policies as a representative of student union at JNU. So they ran a campaign against him, framing as a part of a gang which is trying to dismantle the values of the country which we are living in. So it's not just a pure coincidence that a student who is literally unknown for like years gets shot at after this campaign. So we need to understand here is the way media is colluding with the government to run campaigns against people who are against the things which the government is carrying on. They didn't do anything more than criticizing the policies which are not effective, like demonetization, or the way Aadhaar is being implemented per se, the way GST is being implemented, just the general issues which they have debated and criticized. For doing this, they have been portrayed as anti-nationals. So I don't see any rational person who just assumes any person as anti-national just for criticizing the policies of a government. So this is one prominent thing that has happened. And on this same scale, there was one more thing that happened. This happened in a TV channel called ABP. So what happened was, there was an anchor who was doing a program, just like a 1 hour program, who was very critical about Modi, who was stating some statistics which was not completely true. So he was pointing out the things which Modi stated was not accurate with proofs. I mean, he has gone to the people and he has inquired and got reports about Modi's statistics which were completely contradicting with each other. So when he telecasted that particular show, immediately the next week, the couple of days after the show was aired, what happened was, uh, without the control of the channel itself, the broadcasting was directly interfered, and people couldn't watch that particular show for like 3 or 4 days in a row. I mean, the rest of the time the channel could telecast anything, but that particular show was blocked. I mean, the broadcast was interfered, and people couldn't watch that particular show on every single day following that incident. So government has directly interfered with the broadcast. So after that, what happened was also very dramatic. You will find it in a movie, things like this happening, because immediately after that problem with the broadcasting, uh, obviously they were made to leave the channel. I mean, they have resigned from the channel. They have been working in this channel for more than 15, 16 years. They are very good journalists who have a lot of experience, but just for making an hour show portraying Prime Minister Modi in bad light and criticizing his stats or things which he has stated which were not accurate, just for that he was taken off the air. So these are some things people do not care to understand or critically think, which is very, what we can say, very detrimental to the society as a whole, because when governments just succeed in pushing these important issues under the rug, obviously it can portray itself in a good light using the media, which is already in bed with these governments. So this kind of a system is very detrimental to the functioning of a democracy.